Hello guys, today we're going to be rating IGN's top 100 NES games of all time. I'm very excited, let's get into the list. Alright guys, you can see this is going to be a really big task. We've got ratings from S, A, B, C, D, F, and haven't played. This is a lot of games guys, so there will be a handful of ones that I haven't played, especially maybe some of the more, not obscure, but less mainstream RPGs. For that I do apologize guys, but I'm going to be able to give you guys a fully comprehensive look at these games, at least as much as I possibly can anyway. So I guess we'll get started now with one of the all-time classics, guys. We have Super Mario Brothers 3. I mean, look, the movie The Wizard with Fred Savage and that little California kid. It was basically an hour and a half long commercial for this game. It was a big showdown game at the end of the tournament in California. And a great step up from Super Mario Brothers 1. Mario Brothers 2... good game, but I mean, it was really a reskin of Doki Doki Panic. This was the true Mario sequel, Mario 3, with the new Leaf ability and a few other abilities that allowed Mario to fly and do other things. 8 worlds, all very challenging, with different themes, like you've got a desert world, you know, the grassland, ice, water, giant, even nice big sprites, one of my favorites. And then the end with Bowser. It's a fantastic game. Easily goes in S tier, must have in everyone's NES collection. Next we have DuckTales. One of my first ever NES rentals actually. Used to always rent this out when I was 9 years old, long time before I actually owned the game myself. A little bit on the short side, but at the time certainly one of the most fun Disney games. You have Scrooge McDuck going around on his pogo stick and yeah, basically hopping on enemies, going to different parts of the world to find treasures. And that's pretty much essentially what it's about. It's about trying to become the richest duck in the world while all his, I guess you could say, arch rivals try to stop him in his path. Fantastic game. This actually... am I going to give DuckTales S tier? No, I'm going to give DuckTales A tier. Phenomenal game, but it is a little bit short in length and just missing a little bit of something. It is a pretty easy game. Next we got NES's Ice Hockey. I've played this a few times, not too often, but it's certainly a competent game of ice hockey. It's pretty fun. Came out relatively close to launch on the NES, very early NES game. Not much else to say about this really. It's basic. If you like ice hockey, you're going to enjoy it. We'll put it in the C grade. It's perfectly fine, if not exceptional. Woo! Next guys, we have Final Fantasy. This is the game that saved Squaresoft from Doom, apparently. Squaresoft were making a lot of games at the time that weren't commercially giving them much success. And I heard that they called this Final Fantasy because they thought it was going to be the final game that they made. It's a bit depressing, isn't it? But great, one of the first open world RPGs ever played. Turn-based combat. Wonderful game. Pick your party, go defeat enemies, unravel the story. A wonderful adventure. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit dated by today's standards, but Square has also released an updated version, which is a bit, which has basically got quality of life improvements. Giving this a rating based on what I thought at the time, I'm probably going to give the original Final Fantasy A tier. If you're going to play an RPG on the NES, that's definitely the one of the ones you should play anyway. Guys, next we have Contra, also known as Probotector in the PAL regions. A run-and-gun shooter, wonderful. You play the Contra Force, Contra Bill, taking down basically the aliens that are invading the Earth. You're going through different places like the jungle, hidden hideouts, things like that, until you basically get to the heart of the alien base. Great game. Not very good at this type of game, but I need to take my biases out. The 30 lives code will certainly help you get through it. Am I going to give Contra S tier? No. Again, I think this is a phenomenal game. It might not appeal to absolutely everyone. But for what it's worth, great game. Going to put it in the A tier. Next we have RC Pro-Am. It's actually surprising how addictive this game is, especially since it's a little bit more niche. This is a remote control car racing game. And you go around these different tracks, beating trucks, vans, and eventually cars as you upgrade your parts and your vehicle as you go along. Got to avoid obstacles like water slicks, oil slicks, and you can even pick up weapons which are incredibly fun to attack your opponents. Unfortunately, this game came out pre-DLC. So there are problems with this in regards to rubber banding and cars cheating and things like that. So it's going to lose a couple points for that reason. I would have given it a B grade, but this game is fun, if not flawed. And I'm going to have to give this one a high C tier, I think. Next, we got Excite Bike. I reviewed this in a previous video. Phenomenal game, guys. You've got a time trial mode. So scenario A is a solo time trial mode, and then scenario B is where you have to avoid other bikes. Super fun. And there's even a track editor mode. This is an early Nintendo game, and a lot of content for the time that it came out. I've got to remember I think I gave this an A tier, and yeah, this definitely deserves an A tier. Early NES game, but definitely one you should have in your collection. Oh gosh, I think this game's a little bit polarizing. A lot of people have fond memories of this game. This is River City Ransom, also known as Street Gangs in the PAL region. You play Alex and Ryan Bryan brothers who need to save this girl from the evil high school gangs, and there's different gang members as you go along fighting through the mean streets, where you can collect money and upgrade your abilities and your health and stats and things like that. So it's an interesting concept. It mixes RPG with action fighting beat 'em up game, which I don't think I'd seen done at that point before. It's really neat. It's okay. I think it's a little bit of a grind and a little bit of a drag. If you start the game maxed out with everything with the code at the beginning, it's a little bit more fun to get through. Everyone seems to love this. I don't love this as much as what other people do. I'm teetering between B and a C. Look, you know what? I'm going to give it a B. It might not be my cup of tea, but I have to acknowledge it's an ambitious and fun game for most people. So I'm going to give this a B tier. Next, we got Mega Man 3. I tell you what, Mega Man 2 was a big success on the NES console. Arguably, in a lot of ways, Mega Man 3 is a lot better. But number 2 came along first, and that's where a lot of people's nostalgia comes by. But Mega Man 3 has a lot of phenomenal music, still a lot of great robot original bosses. Incredibly long, this game. Before you even get to the Wily Castle levels, there's these extra, what are they called? Those little, every corner you have like that little, those other little robot boss fights you have to do. It's kind of like the ending before the ending. It's a phenomenally long game, usually takes about 2 hours flat to beat it. Very good Mega Man game. I'm going to have to put that in A tier. If you're into Mega Man, you definitely need to put number 3 in your collection. Just warn you guys, the game is really hard. Oh, next we got Ninja Gaiden. I remember being disappointed with this one growing up, actually, guys, because I first played Ninja Gaiden, aka Shadow Warriors, in the arcade, which was a beat-em-up game. And when I finally rented this, I was hoping I was going to get more of the same. And obviously here I did not. It's actually an action platformer, which made me very disappointed at the time. I returned my rental and swapped it for something else. But now that I'm grown, I've learned to appreciate this one. Challenging game, been to the final boss, never beaten the game, however. But there are some very talented players that can beat this off one life. I can't believe how they could do that. A little bit flawed. A lot of enemies in this will cheaply respawn as you're along your ventures, climbing walls and jumping platforms and stuff. But flawed, but still fun, albeit a little bit short. So I'm going to probably put that in B tier, but it's a very low B tier. It loses points for me because, again, it is very short if you're good at the game and you go from start to finish. Next, we got Super Mario Bros. 2. Look, it's a good game. It's not a real Mario game as we know it. Japan got the Lost levels. They thought that game would be a little bit too hard for the West. So this is the sequel that countries like the UK, America, and Australia got. And yeah, it's interesting. It's a good action game, but it doesn't play like a conventional Mario game. You're walking around and you're picking up things like turnips out of the ground and obstacles and throwing them at your enemies, and just feels like, for me, it's missing a little something. There are people that absolutely love this game, and it is a good and challenging game. It just doesn't feel like a Mario game, so I'm going to give that one a B tier, I think. Woo, okay, I've got to try and leave my bias at the door for this one. We have Castlevania this time on the NES. Oh, the original console adventurer Simon Belmont. 6 levels traversing this ultra creepy castle, killing things like zombies, bats, Medusa heads. Oh my god, I hate the Medusa heads. All sorts of other enemies with bosses at the end, like Frankenstein, mummies, you name it. A lot of great creative enemies in this. Oh, a challenging game. Actually relatively short, but felt a lot longer than what it was actually as a kid, because it would take you a long time to practice and finally beat this game. Probably took me 2 years of playing to finally get to the end, guys. At least a year and a half anyway. I think it's a phenomenal game. I certainly don't think it's going to be for everyone due to the difficulty, which is why I'm probably going to drop it from an A tier and take my bias out and probably put it on a B tier. It is a solid Castlevania game, certainly one for the hardcore gamer as well. Ooh, look at what we have here. The Legend of Zelda. The open world adventure experience that took the world by storm. Go through an open world map, uncover the secrets, beat the enemies in the dungeons, gather the Triforce until you finally encounter Ganon and the final showdown. Whew. This is a phenomenal game. And I can't believe how advanced this game is, considering it got published in, what, 1986 in Japan? Oh my gosh, I'm not going to keep rambling on. You need to put The Legend of Zelda in your collection. Now we have Kid Icarus, another polarizing game, another Japanese game published in 1986. I personally love this game. You basically play a fallen angel called Pit, and it's based loosely on Greek mythology. You have to save, forgotten what her name is. She begins with P, but you have to rescue this princess lady, basically, that's been kidnapped by Medusa. And what I loved about this game is, even though it was linear, at the time it didn't feel like it was linear. You just felt like you're on this big, massive adventure. Like, you've got these vertically scrolling levels, horizontally scrolling levels, these free world dungeons to traverse and beat the bosses in. It's a wonderful experience. Incredibly difficult game. Another one that took me a long time to beat. And also, I acknowledge, not everyone's cup of tea. The biggest issue with Kid Icarus is it starts hard and ends easy, because once you start leveling up, the game's a lot more pleasant to play. Very hard to get out of the first world when you first start playing this, because you don't have a big health bar or big attack power or anything like that. So, yeah, the difficulty is pretty backwards in Kid Icarus. I like it more than most people. I have to use my opinion on this one. I'm going to give it a B tier. I think most people would probably give it a C tier, to be honest. But I can't help it. I love Kid Icarus. Oh, look at what we have here. Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Very polarizing game, because with the success of the original Legend of Zelda, I think people expected more of the same thing. And they didn't get it. They did have little open world sequences in this, but it led to a lot of horizontally scrolling levels and dungeons and things like that. It was kind of like a side-scrolling action game, essentially. Very challenging, unforgiving at times, but very fun. I would argue that if this was called something else, it could have been even more successful, but, you know, it's sometimes a sequel curse that they have. You know, you try to be a little bit ambitious, try something new, and people hate change. They wanted more of the same thing with the last Zelda game. I mean, if it was based completely on my bias, I would still give this an S tier. And a lot of people are still going to think A tier is too high, because this is one of my favorite games of all time. But I really, truly think this game is phenomenal. And if you're patient with it and you give it a chance, it's a wonderful adventure. So there we go. We're going to put Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Next, we have Blaster Master, another classic, and a game I wish I learned how to play when I was young. Unfortunately, I did not, guys. And I have tried it for about a half an hour here and there. Not enough to give an honest opinion on it. I've seen my friends play. It looks like a phenomenal game. It's kind of like a Metroidvania-style game, or Metroid-style game anyway. I'd like to give it a score. I mean, I'd probably put it in a B or an A tier based on other people's opinions. I mean, look, I've done a few levels and beaten a couple bosses, and I guess I can give it a rate. Look, based on that, I'll give it a B rating, but I just want you to acknowledge I haven't played Blaster Master all the way through, so by all means, you can reevaluate my opinion in the comments. Just be nice, it's all good. Next, we have the NES version of Bubble Bobble, everybody. Oh, Bubble Bobble, hey? This is, yeah, this is a good game, guys. Very, very good game. Arcade port. Plays wonderfully. Very smooth. 100 levels. Have to rescue some ladies at the end, apparently. Encourages multiplayer play. It's fun. You throw bubbles at the enemies, you pop them, go up to the next level, so forth, so forth. Wait, do you go up or down? You might go down. Yeah, it might be down in this one. I think Snow Brothers you go up. But, yeah, fun action game. Good port. Probably because it's an arcade game, I'm going to give it a B tier, I think, on this one. It is a great game, but sometimes people want more depth than just a simple arcade game. So we're going to give that a B tier. And now we got another ice hockey game here, guys. We have Blades of Steel. And I got this one birthday. I was either turning 12 or 13. I'll confess to you guys, I wanted this game for the fights. Because you can actually get fights, and whoever loses the fight with punches and blocks and everything, whoever loses their hit points first gets put in the penalty box, so the loser gets punished. I love that. And then the other team has to play temporarily with a player short. It's pretty cool. Great game of ice hockey. Few difficulties. There's also like an awesome mini game, I think at quarter or 2/4 time, where you can do like the mini boss fight in Gradius, which I think is neat. Great homage to Konami games. And yeah, just a wonderful hockey presentation. Definitely going to put that in the B tier. Yeah, I prefer that over NES's ice hockey. So if you want an ice hockey experience, definitely get Blades of Steel. Next, we have Castlevania Simon's Quest. And, woo-yee! Yes, another polarizing game. Couldn't figure out how to beat this game until the internet came along. I still enjoyed doing things like mansions and, you know, exploring the open world. Felt a lot bigger than what it actually is when I was a kid, but it's still fairly big for the time. You play Simon about a decade later from the first game. You have to collect Dracula's body parts from all the mansions, resurrect him in a big pot for some reason, and then kill him. I think one thing that hurts this game is the cryptic advice that's pretty useless from the villagers as you go through the towns, and also lack of boss fights as well, and they're very generic and uninteresting, and the final boss fight's also very disappointing. I love Simon's Quest. I play this a lot, but I also acknowledge it's an incredibly flawed game. So I'm going to give it a C tier, even though in my own mind it's probably more of a B tier. I love Simon's Quest, or at least really enjoy Simon's Quest. I also acknowledge that it's not a great game. We got Metal Gear. Ooh, the original Metal Gear game. A lot of people start talking from, I guess, Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation 1, because that's what put the series on the map. But this was the original stealth adventure I played, and thankfully in my youth I actually did beat this once. And, yeah, you play Solid State. You have to Snake, you have to take down the big boss, sneak past guards, collect weapons, rescue hostages, all that kind of good stuff. Ooh, a bit difficult and cryptic at times, but a fun adventure nevertheless, if you have the patience to learn how to play it. It will drive you nuts. Metal Gear on, you know what, I'm actually probably going to give that a C, because it's probably not for everyone, guys, if I'm going to tell you the truth. I enjoy it. Some people might not like the pacing of Metal Gear. Next, we got Kirby's Adventure. Oh, there you go, the little marshmallow-looking sunbish that sucks in enemies and can transform into their different abilities, like the cutter and the wheel and all sorts of stuff. Creative bosses. At the end of each world and sometimes halfway through a world. Wonderful adventure, challenging adventure, deceptively challenging as the game starts easy and it has a really nice sort of gradual progression in difficulties that goes along. I'm going to put Kirby's Adventure in the A tier. It's certainly a must-have platformer. It's not in the God tier with Mario 3 and Zelda, but it is the best of the rest, guys. Definitely get a hold of Kirby. Now we got Baseball Stars, and I want to acknowledge that this is an absolute masterpiece on the NES if you're a baseball fan, just going by what everyone's told me and all the review scores. I unfortunately haven't spent more than 5 minutes on this, so I can't have much of an opinion, so this is actually going to have to be the first game, I apologize, that I put in the haven't played section. My bad, everybody. Next, we got the original Adventure Island. So this was like a reskin of Wonder Boy on the Sega Master System. Essentially exactly the same game that kind of went off to be its own franchise, and Wonder Boy then went off to do something different. It's a good game, a very, very difficult game. I think there are codes you can use to activate continues, but on the standard settings and without knowledge, I don't think there's actually continues in this. Brutally hard, not for everyone. I think the Adventure Island games that came later on were better in this one. Some people will put the original Adventure Island higher because nostalgia is a hell of a drug. But to be honest, I'm putting that in the C tier. It's perfectly fine, albeit not a great game. We have Super Mario Brothers. Yes, you kill Koopas and Goombas and jump over Bowser only to be told that your princess is in another castle and you enjoy every single minute of it. You know what? If you don't know what Super Mario Brothers is, I don't know what to tell you. A little bit more primitive than Mario 3, but this is where it all began. And it spawned a Mario 35 game that was awesome. Please bring that back, Nintendo. The Mario Battle Royale. I still have fun playing this even to today, no matter how basic it is. Nearly 40 years on, I am still playing Super Mario Brothers. Boom. God tier S. Let's go. Next, we have Mega Man. A lot of people didn't like the original Mega Man. The platforming's not as tight as, I'll admit, as future entries in this series. But 6 robot bosses and a challenging boss Wily circuit afterwards, where you can use a pause exploit to help you beat the bosses. Oh, I hate the Yellow Devil. Really fun, futuristic platforming game. I always really enjoyed this, but nostalgia's a hell of a drug. I would personally probably put this in the B or the A tier, but I am doing my best to also put my biases aside a little tiny bit. No, actually, you know what? I am going to put this on B tier. I mean, it's my list, and that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling B, so it's going to go in B. There we go, Mega Man. You go in B tier. I don't care what people say. There we go. Mega Man's a great start. And, I mean, they could have done better box art. We did get better box art in the PAL region. Next, we got Micro Machines. I mean, this version's a fun tabletop racer. I mean, I probably prefer to play RC Pro-Am a little bit. Or if I want to play Micro Machines, I probably prefer the Sega Genesis version, to be honest. But it's fine. I mean, race your Micro Machines around different environments. It's a good time if you're into that sort of thing. We'll put it in the C tier. Next, we got Snake, Rattle, and Roll. I think this is a Rare game, as in the Rare Company. They like to do a lot of those sort of like isometric style games, and this was another one. I've played it a few times, guys, and I'll admit I haven't played it to completion, but I didn't really get it. I mean, if I played it a little bit more, I'd probably understand it and have a newfound appreciation of it. But I can only give it a score based on what I think of it, and I don't really like it apart from the presentation. So I'm going to put that one in D tier. Sorry, that's probably going to piss some people off. Oh, this is a hard game. Batman. Oh gosh, I might annoy people with my rating of this. I think it's a fun but incredibly difficult platforming romp, which is going to turn some people off. And also the presentation is weird. You know, you've got Batman enemies and you've got Batman, like the Joker's the final boss. But nothing else about this feels Batman-y, to be honest. Like, this is a Sunsoft game, and you're like in this futuristic-looking factory defeating these monsters and enemies and jumping on cogs and stuff. It almost feels like this game was supposed to be something else, and then they slapped a Batman license on this. I know a lot of people love Batman, but I'm personally going to actually put this in C tier. It's good. It's acceptable. I don't really think it's exceptional. Ooh, will we take a look at what we have here, guys? We have a Gradius. Ooh, a very difficult, horizontally scrolling Konami shooter that also has a Konami code to give you all the weapons, and you're going to freaking need it. Many different levels where you have to defeat bosses with your weaponry, avoid volcanoes. There's also this like space Easter Island looking level, which is pretty unique. Oh, incredibly challenging and frustrating. I haven't beaten it, however, I do really enjoy it. And I also have to acknowledge the shooter fans out there. If you ask me, I'm a shooter fan. Is Gradius a must-have? Trying to think from your point of view, I would honestly have to say yes. I think this is certainly up there with like an R-Type style game that you must have in your collection. And for that reason, taking my biases aside out just a little bit, I'm actually going to put Gradius in A tier. I think it's deserving of that spot. And if you're into shooters, I think you're safe to get that one. It'll keep you busy for a very long time. Now we got Star Tropics, kind of similar to an open world adventure like Zelda, but I think you do these dungeons, which is kind of like grid based, which is really, really interesting. You play this little kid that goes on an island. I can't remember the exact storyline, but I got most of the way through this game back in the day. You're traveling this this world map, finding secrets, entering these hovels, beating bosses, collecting items and stuff. Yeah, you know, it's not the most mainstream game in the world, but it's a shame more people don't know about Star Tropics because it's a fun and challenging adventure to be had and pretty easy to play, hard to master, will keep you busy for a long time. I think Star Tropics is worthy of a B tier, even with my limited memory of the game. I think I remember enough to confidently give it a B tier. Now, this is a game I remember very well. Oh, gosh. Faxanadu, ladies and gentlemen. I might need to scroll. I might need to. Let me just pause the stream from here. And, no, actually, I won't pause the stream yet. I will readapt as we need to, because we might need to make some more room. That's cool. I'll do it in a minute. But Faxanadu, guys. Yes, this is a side-scrolling adventure game. You have to, I think you have to rescue the, is it the Dwarf Kingdom from the evil elves, or it's the Elf Kingdom from the evil dwarves? But either way, you have to save one faction from another in a big side-scrolling quest. Relatively open world in some parts, although deceptively linear in others. You level up your abilities, collect items, keys, enter dungeons, defeat bosses. It's a great adventure. Controls and gameplay could be a little bit tighter. There's a lot of cheap deaths and a lot of cheap knockbacks when you get hit by enemies as well. A fun but flawed adventure experience. I'm going to give this one a B tier. Pretty safe B tier, actually. I would definitely give Faxanadu a shot, especially if you like games like The Legend of Zelda 2. Now we got the Jackal, everybody. This is an isometric shooter game where you play a tank. And your goal is basically to infiltrate the enemy stronghold. And before you get to the main enemy stronghold, you get to all these checkpoints, defeat bosses like tanks, helicopters, missile silos hidden in statues and things like that. Wonderful adventure. You can also rescue hostages as well. It's great. You definitely feel like a one-man army when you play Jackal. You know what? I'm actually going to put that in the A tier. Along with Gradius, Konami did some really good shooters, and Jackal is certainly another one. Definitely give that one a shot, guys. You won't be disappointed. All right. Speaking of Konami shooters, guys, next we have Life Force. I guess you could say it's a spiritual sequel to Gradius. A million times more difficult, but the same type of gameplay. Collect weapons. What's really cool, though, is it's not just horizontally scrolling levels. I'm pretty sure there's vertically scrolling levels as well. Different bosses. Really challenging, more interesting bosses at the end of each level. Probably not as good as Gradius. I think the extra difficulty, believe it or not, in this one makes it a little bit less accessible. If you love bullet hell games, you're going to have fun here. If you're a casual gamer, you'll probably move on. But I do think Life Force deserves a solid B tier. Now, I know your RPG fans are going to hate me. I acknowledge the Dragon War series is fantastic, but I never played the fourth game. I'm sorry, homies. I'm going to have to put that in the haven't played section. Alright, guys. Next, we have Mega Man 2. I guess this is the Mega Man game that put the series on the map, whether it's a very creative robot bosses, such as Flashman, Quickman, Clashman, Airman, Woodman, who has my favorite theme, by the way, apart from the Wily stages, which has a yeah. Great music in this game the whole way through. Great presentation, bosses. Difficulty, once you learn all the right sub-weapons, is a little bit easy. However, there is a normal and a difficult mode, which switches things up a bit. So there's definitely replayability here. Oh, you know what? I'm actually going to put Mega Man 2 in God tier. If there ever is a Mega Man game to must own, I think in a lot of ways number 3 is better, but I think Mega Man 2 is also more accessible to the casual audience. I have to sort of keep that in mind as well. Anyone can pick up Mega Man 2 and play it, I think. So, yeah, I'm going to put that in God tier. That's a must-own game. Mega Man 2, there you go. Here we go, guys. We have Battletoads. Honestly, this is the most overrated Nintendo game, I think, probably on the system. It's a jack of all trades and a master of nothing. It's like it doesn't know if it wants to be a racing game, a beat-em-up game, a platforming game. It has so many different identity crises all the whole way through, and it's also unreasonably difficult in parts, although some people will swear otherwise. There is some enjoyment to be had here, but I think it's more frustrating than it is fun. You know, I'm going to piss some people off. I was going to give it a C tier, but I'm actually going to give that a D tier. Only reason I play that game on my stream is to get a laugh out of my community. I don't like the game at all. Screw you, Battletoads. Next, we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. And this is based off the arcade game that came out in the arcades, of course. Hence why it's called the arcade game. Another Turtles game came beforehand, which was okay, actually. But people were disappointed because it wasn't the arcade experience they were longing for. So finally, it was pretty ambitious, actually, to be able to port the arcade game onto the NES console. But kudos to everyone involved. Ultra, aka Konami, Nintendo, they delivered. Follows the game beautifully, and is also a little bit longer as well, which I think is a good thing to keep players busy, because you don't want a home port that's too short, especially if you're paying a full retail price. Some extra bosses as well. There's that snow level. There's a Baxter Stockman, 2 Baxter Stockman levels, one when he was a fly, one when he was not transformed. You got Shredder, Krang, lots of levels, get to use all 4 turtles. Fun but frustrating. Again, there is a code that will give you extra lives. You're probably going to struggle without it. Easy to play, hard to master, but I do think the Turtles arcade game is worthy of a B tier. Next, we got the Crystallis Sensation. I have played this, but only a little bit. A fun but slow-paced open-world adventure game. It is fun to explore, although you do need a lot of time on your hands. It's probably going to take you 6 to 10 hours to beat this. Probably on your first run from what I've heard. I mean, if you know how to play the game, you probably cut that in half. But I have to put it in the haven't played tier because I can't really judge. I mean, I know this is an all-time classic. You'd probably put it in A and S. But I can't unfairly judge something I haven't played enough. So, Blaster Master was borderline. I gave that a rating. But Crystallis, you know what? I'm going to humble myself, put it in the haven't played tier. Next, we got Ninja Gaiden 3. Oh, gosh. Why did they only give you a handful of continues in this game? Look, I guess it's the same action as the original Ninja Gaiden and Ninja Gaiden 2. Incredibly freaking difficult and unforgiving, though. Another one of the examples of a game that's more frustrating than fun. But if you're into these hellish action games, you'll probably have some kind of excitement here. I'll put it in C tier only just. I'll put that one in the C tier. Next, we got Klax. Puzzle game. I remember it on the Sega Genesis. Never played the NES version. So I'm going to put that in haven't played. Fester's Quest. I've tried to play this game so many times. And this is another polarizing game. People swear by it. But I could never figure out what I was doing. You go through different dungeons. And sort of like this overworld map. You have to find like exits and stuff. I couldn't figure out what I was doing. I mean, I guess from what I played of it was fun. It's been a little minute. Forgive my hazy memory. Didn't come out in Australia. Thankfully, the emulation, I got to try it. And IGN actually gave this a top 100, huh? Oh, well, I'm going to put that on the C tier. Next we have, I don't know what, oh, Metal Storm. Yeah, you play this little metal kind of action-y guy. Kind of, this game sort of reminds me a little bit of Section Z. Not played it too much. I guess what I played it was fun and difficult. Futuristic, sort of like shooter platforming style game. Should I give it a rating or should I put it in the haven't played? I don't know enough about it, actually. I might put Metal Storm in the haven't... Oh, here we go. What is it? The Vice Squad Doom or Vice City Squad Doom or whatever you call it. Oh, gosh. Interesting game. You play this action hero, starting this racing level, which is kind of like Spy Hunter or Road Blasters. Thankfully, a lot easier than that. And then you enter these levels where you collect weapons, go through these like hideouts and stuff, beating enemies. Eventually, at the end of each one, you'll have a boss until you get to the final boss. Fun game, very frustrating at the end. I remember how much hell the final boss gave me when I finally got up to the final boss, and I haven't played it since. Look, you are going to punish yourself towards the end of this game, but it is good. I'm going to put Vice Project Doom probably in the B tier, I think. I think that's a fair score. We got Tengen's Tetris. I mean, it's Tetris. Match the blocks, try to connect 4, get as many points as you can. They'll progressively drop down faster, and keep trying to make lines without making mistakes and filling the screen with blocks, or it's a game over screen. Tetris is great. I mean, less is more. Sometimes you don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you want a puzzle game, get Tetris. We're going to put that in A tier, I think. Even if it is an unofficially licensed game. I think this one is Kid Nicky. It looks like it's Kid Nicky. Action sort of platforming game. You play this sort of like Ninja Kid Nicky, I think, and... Does he have sticks or something? I know he platforms, and then you do these levels, and then you come across these bosses, and then you collect these scroll-looking things, and it's been a long time. I do remember it being fun, yet challenging. I also know it won't be everyone's cup of tea, because it is exceptionally difficult. I think I remember using save states to play this game. Which allows you to go back in your progress the moment you died. Look, I'll probably give that one C tier based on my memory. If you think that's an unfair score, you can certainly tell me in the comments. Now, let me just get my bearings for a sec. Oh, here we go. Cool. We got Castlevania Dracula's Curse this time, everybody. Castlevania 3. I don't think this got released originally in Australia. We do have it now, thanks to Nintendo Switch Online. Or actually, it came on the Castlevania Anniversary Collection, too. You play Trevor Belmont this time. The anime was based on this game. And you meet people like Grant and Cypher in your adventures. So you can swap between them all. And they all each have their strengths and weaknesses depending on the level. I usually just use Trevor, to be honest. You traverse the Transylvanian countryside and eventually the castle, where you'll encounter enemies and stuff and eventually fight Dracula again in a final showdown. A very good, but albeit difficult, I would argue even more difficult than in the original Castlevania. This game drives me nuts, and I actually have to play an easy mod of this because I struggle with it so much. Look, a lot of people would probably give it higher. I love the Castlevania games, but I also have to be honest. I'm going to give that a solid B tier. I don't think any of the NES Castlevania games are a must-own, except maybe for the first one due to the pure nostalgia. But yes, we're going to put that there. I love Castlevania, but I also have to be honest with my scoring. Oh my gosh, speaking of games that are hard as balls, Shadowgate. Point-and-click adventure game, guys. You go into this evil castle. I've forgotten what the plot is. You have to find an evil wizard at the end or something and defeat him. But you have to collect torches and make sure that you act accordingly very quickly in this castle, because if your last flaming torch burns out, it's game over. You're lost forever, because this place is freaking dark. You've got to uncover secrets while avoiding traps, enemies that come in your path. Very difficult, but it was originally a Mac adventure series point-and-click game, I think. Shadowgate's a good adventure. I don't think point-and-click adventures are for everyone, though. And not everyone might like the pacing of this. I'm going to give Shadowgate a C tier, albeit a very high C tier. And guys, I'll be right back because I'm just going to increase the size of the screen for you all. Alright, you legends, I am back. This is a big, big list. Okay, next we have Dr. Mario. Not usually into puzzle games, guys, and I was very disappointed Mario was used in a license for a puzzle game as a kid. I have to rate this fairly because it's an all-time classic. People love this puzzle game. I've never been able to personally figure it out. I would always lose royalty to no matter who I took on in this game, and I can barely survive against a computer as well. But the concept is you're supposed to match viruses up with the right color pill in order to eliminate them. It's easier said than done because pills come in multiple colors and the viruses are strategically placed around the screen. And the pills will drop down onto the screen progressively faster. Look, Dr. Mario is a fantastic game. And I'm probably going to give it an A tier because if you're into puzzle games, it's definitely a must-have like Tetris. It's not personally my cup of tea, but I'm also going to take all biases out and be honest with my rankings because I have integritar. Next, guys, we got The Adventures of Lolo 3. I think I mainly played the first and the second one. I haven't played number 3 long enough for a rating. I would personally probably put it in the C or B tier, guys, because it is certainly a great puzzle game where you push blocks and avoid enemies, and you've got to figure out how to safely get out of each level. Definitely worth playing. The third one, if it's anything like the number 1 or 2, I'll have a rough idea of what it's like. But, yes, I can't fairly rate something that I haven't played a lot. So, next we got Tecmo Super Bowl. Pretty comprehensive football game, guys. The original Tecmo Bowl was basically a straight game of football. I think in Tecmo Super Bowl, it's a classic where you could actually play around with your teams and stuff and treat the game like a full franchise. To this day, I'm pretty sure people are actually making mods of this game and adding the updated teams and stuff, which is incredible because this came out like over 35 years ago, I think. Maybe 30 years ago at least anyway. Incredible game of football, even though it's not my thing. If you're a sports fan, it's a wonderful experience and certainly one of the must-have sports games. I'm going to put Tecmo Super Bowl in A tier and look out for my American fans. Here's to you. Oh, here we go. Polarizing game time. Ghosts and Goblins. Look, there is a fun game to be had here. You play Arthur. For some reason, he's having a picnic in the cemetery with his girl. She gets kidnapped by some evil satanic beast-looking thing. And you have to go through the graveyard and all through this, I guess, land, I suppose. There's like buildings, there's caverns, things like that. Until you get to the final boss. Only to be told that you have to go through the whole game all over again because that first world was an illusion. A fun game, but a frustratingly hard game. Look, I've only ever been to the final level once, to tell you the truth. Most people are not going to be able to handle Ghosts and Goblins. There are really good gamers out there that can teach you the secrets and how to get better. However, I do not know those secrets, and therefore I can't take them into account. Look, there's fun to be had here. If you're a masochist, I'm going to put Ghosts and Goblins in C tier, I think. Alright, next you legends, we have Double Dragon 3. This is the red-headed stepchild of the Double Dragon family, everyone. The arcade game was a cheap cash cow where the only way you could beat is if you kept putting in quarters for power-ups. Also, the Sega Genesis port of this was hot garbage, probably one of the worst games on the system. The NES version, however, brutally tough. You'd start up with only one life, Bimmy Lee, aka Billy Lee. A little bit of an inside joke there. Eventually, you'll get like Chin and a few other characters to help you on your quest. You have to basically get the Rosetta Stones and go to different countries, I think, like Japan, China, Italy. I think the final showdown is Egypt. Oh my gosh, that final boss is absolutely hell. Incredibly difficult game. If you can bear with it, it is fun. It's certainly not for beginners. It's a high C, and probably the only version of Double Dragon 3, to be honest. Worth playing a damn. So there you go. We're going to put that one there. Oh, here we go, guys. Wizards and Warriors. So you play this knight, and he's an absolute pimp. He's got so much game. Like, basically what happens is he goes through different levels, like this big gigantic tree, caverns, everything, collecting gems, paying the toll to get to the boss enemies. And he will rescue a different princess, and mac on each princess with every dungeon that he goes through. And it's cool, man. Man, I tell you what, he's got so much girls, it's ridiculous. It's a great action game, a little bit cheap and frustrating with the platforming at times. I do remember once I got a hang of it as a kid, it was like riding a bike and I would beat it every other weekend. I find it a lot harder to do now, but I still play it from time to time. The death music, it just drive you insane. Every time you're about to die, the music changes and it's just anxiety inducing, similar to Sonic's like underwater levels. I'm going to give Wizards and Warriors a B, albeit a low B. Not everyone's cup of tea, but a great action game, and I do recommend it to people. Oh, there we go. We got one of the Squaresoft originals here. We got Rad Racer, a very early NES game. One of the first grey box games. Came out in 1987. Outrun clone to beat the clock racer. But rather than just do one course, you have different stages. 8 of them, in fact. And you can race in places like, I think, California, Nevada. There's even like an international level. There's like a snowy mountain level, typhoon level. And it's about beating the clock, getting from one end of the circuit to another. The tracks themselves are not too hard to figure out, but what makes this game incredibly difficult is the other cars that are oncoming. And from about level 4, level 5 onwards, if you race too fast into them, they'll also make you flip and not just skid, which is really annoying. Very cheap at times. You have to get a little bit lucky, but there is a fun game to be had there. I would play Rad Racer all the time, and based on that, I'm going to give it B tier. Next, we have Mega Man 6. I mean, you get the gist of Mega Man 6. You know, robot bosses, wily stages, you know, boss hideout. Mega Man collects different abilities to help him beat the bosses rock, paper, scissors style. By the time Mega Man 6 came out, the game is okay, but it's difficult and cheap at times, and I also felt at this point, maybe a little bit too much of a good thing. Probably going to put number 6 in the C tier, to be honest. That might not make too many people too happy. But hey, we got a Mega Man game in S tier. Rygar. So I never beat Rygar, but I've played this enough to give it a rating. Interesting. I kind of wanted more of the arcade experience where you'd walk around these horizontal levels and destroy your enemies with this big shield weapon thingy, whatever it is. It's kind of like a flail. This one's the same kind of deal, but it's sort of like an open world adventure game where you're going to go into different doors, find different abilities, and there's bosses and stuff too. It's okay. I mean, again, nostalgia's a hell of a drug, and I have a funny feeling nearly every kid in America got this for their Nintendo, which is why they like it so much. This was one of the games I personally left at the video store. Look, I'm going to give it a C tier, but a high C tier. There's a lot of game to be had in Rygar and a lot to enjoy. I just don't think it's an exceptional game. It's just a fine game, a good game. Oh, next we have Metroid. This is one of the games that started the Metroidvania genre, I guess. This is where you go through this big underground dungeon doing exploration to find things like missiles, energy tanks, eventually uncovering dungeons, beating 2 mini-bosses, Kraid, Ridley, and eventually going to the hideout of Mother Brain. But in order to do that, you need to find the weapons and know how to uncover the secrets. Keep in mind, this was pre-internet and very difficult. And I think I first played Metroid when I was 8. I didn't finally actually beat the game until I was 12 or 13. I'm still pretty proud that I did that without internet. That was an incredible achievement. A tier, man. I mean, even though some people are going to be frustrated with this and not beat it, at the time, exploring in this game was just so much fun. You just never knew what you were going to encounter. We're going to give Metroid an A tier. Next, we got Super C. Another game like Contra. Don't know too much about the plot in this, I have to admit. I can only judge it based on how I played it. Fun run and gun gameplay again. Once again, challenging levels, challenging bosses. What did I give Contra? I gave Contra an A tier. Look, Super C is fantastic. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as Contra. You could argue that it was probably improved on Contra with how they added extra things into this, but I don't know. I feel like nostalgia is a hell of a drug, but Contra was the first of its kind, so I think Super C was pretty fun, but I'm going to put that in a B tier. Next, guys, we have another point-and-click adventure, Maniac Mansion. It's about a maniac in a mansion. Well, kind of. There's this maniac family in this mansion, and the main protagonist's girlfriend has been kidnapped in this, and you have to pick a choice of two friends to help rescue her, and they each have their different strengths and weaknesses. One might be good at repairing things, one might be good at sports, one might be incredibly strong, and what makes this game really interesting is it's open-ended, and there's many different ways that you can beat the game and many different strategies you can use, albeit none of them are very easy. It's a lot of trial and error, and you can be frustrated at times playing Maniac Mansion. Look, by today's standards, a bit slow-paced. I probably wouldn't play it now, but at the time, I loved it. I just put so many hours into this. And based on that, I'm actually going to give Maniac Mansion an A tier. If you're not into point-and-click adventures, you might give it a C tier. That's fine. But if you're going to have a point-and-click adventure, it's Maniac Mansion's definitely one of the ones to have, guys. Next, we have Kung Fu. Oh, dude. I mean, this is S tier. I mean, when it comes to black box games, the two black box games you need to own is Super Mario Brothers and Kung Fu. Like, this is the launch game to have. You have this tower. You have to rescue your girlfriend Sylvia from the evil Mr. X. Each floor has a different boss. One has boomerangs. One's a wizard with fireballs. There's different enemies and challenges that are very creative in each level to discover. Now, it's a very short game. You'll get through one loop in about 5-6 minutes, but you can keep adding to your high score and the game loops. So really, it's about high score chasing, and it's thoroughly addictive. You're just going to want to keep playing it. Kung Fu's God tier, guys. You might be surprised, but that's what I think of it. Gargoyles. Oh, gosh, this is going to disappoint some of you guys. I don't have any experience with Gargoyles. I'm going to have to put that in the haven't played section. Next, we have Wizards and Warriors 2 Iron Sword. It had a really annoying gambling mini game where you could try and win money and you never would. Little cup game. It was so freaking annoying. Or skull game. I couldn't get very far in this. I don't know what it was compared to the first game about Iron Sword. I'm surprised this made it to the top 100 list. But very difficult. Some of you action fans might get something out of this. I'm probably only going to give it a C tier and a very low C tier. And what's with Fabio on the box of that game as well? I mean, I guess he did have long, glorious barbarian-style hair, right? We got Stinger, guys. I'm actually going to put Stinger in the haven't played. I really don't know anything about Stinger. My apologies, everybody. We don't have too many games in the haven't played section, so that's quite fortunate. Next, we have Cobra Triangle, everybody. Cobra Triangle is another game by Rare, an isometric style game where you play this little speedboat and you have to traverse different levels. And it's so creative, actually, because there's many different levels in Cobra Triangle. You've got these, like, races, or you've got like this single screen section where you have to, like, survival level where you have to rescue, like, these kids in a pool for some reason. There's boss levels, there's bonus pod collecting levels. There's levels where you have to avoid obstacles like icebergs, whirlpools, things like that. Waterfall jump, there's just so much game, you know, blowing up mines and avoiding boats, trying to steal them back off you. There's just so much creativity in this. And it's also a bargain bin game, one of the cheapest games you can collect on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Incredibly common. A lot of kids weren't happy to get this as a game growing up, but I thought it was exceptionally good, to be honest, and definitely great value for money. Difficult, but fun. I'm actually giving Cobra Triangle a B. I probably gave it a higher score than most people would, actually. We got Kicks here. Guys, I'm sorry, I've never played Kicks. That's going back down the bottom. We got Little Nemo the Dream Master. Look, I played the arcade version a lot, where you play Nemo, hit enemies, you'd have a boss battle at the end of each stage. And what was really cool about Little Nemo the Dream Master arcade game is you start from having good dreams and then you go to like a nightmare type land where it was really dark and ominous. It was great. kind of seems a little bit more, not necessarily open world, but sort of like open level style game, Little Nemo the Dream Master and NES, where you can collect different abilities and do different things. I haven't played it a lot, but I've played it enough to know that it doesn't really do anything for me, although I do know a lot of people do like Little Nemo the Dream Master, but nah, I'm giving it a C. Honestly, not for me. Guys, we got Tecmo Wrestling. A fun wrestling game. Apart from pro wrestling, the only wrestling game really worth playing, arguably, on the Nintendo Entertainment System. A little bit cheap. You can be winning to the last blow in your opponent, and then they'll all of a sudden come back and beat you. It's crazy. I think some of the characters in this are loosely based off real-world wrestlers, but there's people from all over the globe with different abilities, and you might have some submission wrestlers, you might have some strength-based wrestlers. There's so many different moves. And fun to try and use every single wrestler in this. And you're basically going through like a big world tour and going up each progressively harder wrestler until you beat the champion. There's also really fun mini games where you can do like sit-ups and weight training and stuff and add to your abilities and make you stronger for the next match. Oh, it's a great wrestling game, guys. I recommend giving it a go. Fun but flawed, but fun enough, I think, to put in B tier. There you go. Tecmo Wrestling. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Sorry, I mean, a little bit biased, but I don't care. This is going in God tier, guys. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Oh my gosh, this game makes me foam in the mouth out of excitement. Fight in the minor circuit, the major circuit, and the world circuit. Funny cultural stereotypes of every single boxer in this game. Knock them all the fudge out. Little, guess you could say, people like to cheer on the underdog. Little Mac weighs all of 100 pounds. Him and his trainer Doc Lewis going through all the circuits until you finally beat Macho Man for the title and have the dream fight against Mike Tyson, one of the most notorious bosses in NES history. Oh boy, God tier. There we go. I don't really need to say anything else about that. Absolute God tier. Next, we got Legendary Wings. I think this is a Capcom game based on the arcade game. And another interesting hybrid game, guys. You've got these overworld shooter levels, and then you enter these caverns where you do these sort of almost like mixture of like horizontally flying and also walking, because you can walk on the ground as well. So it's an interesting hybrid shooter style game. One thing I have to say about Legendary Wings is graphically, I feel like it's a bit of a downgrade from the arcade version. It's a little bit of an eyesore in part, so it does need to lose a little bit of points. But it's a fun but challenging shooter game and very interesting one. I'm going to give this one a high C. A very high C. Worth a play. Now we got Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Another Disney classic. You play the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. You do different environments. Each environment has a different boss. You play Chip or Dale and basically you pick up boxes and blocks and things like that. Throw them at your enemies. That's pretty much all there is to it. You use the same tactics to defeat bosses while avoiding their patterns. Fun game. When it comes to Disney games on NES, I think probably this or DuckTales are the ones to play. I do like DuckTales a little bit more, but I also have to acknowledge Chip and Dale is up there on the fun factor. So there we go. We're going to put Chip and Dale up there. Now we got Ikari Warriors, everybody. Okay, this is an isometric shooter phenomenon. Everyone has a lot of nostalgia for this game. I think personally probably for the wrong reasons. Incredibly difficult and cheap. The arcade version's a bit better, albeit still unforgiving. I don't understand why the enemies in this game have a bigger shooting range than what the main player does. That's part of what breaks this game. To get through it, you basically need to do an ABBA code to keep resurrecting. Otherwise, you're going to last 2.5 minutes in this game. And even then, you can't even use a continue on the final boss. It's a frustrating game, guys. I won't lie. Getting into the tanks in this and using them to blow up enemies is fun, but they never really last for very long. No, you know what? Ikari Warriors is going on D tier. There's a better game that's similar called Guerrilla War. That's a game that Ikari Warriors should have been. Now we got Spy Hunter. Look, I like Spy Hunter, but I've never lasted more than a few seconds on Spy Hunter. You play this car, And it's like this it's like a vertical driving game, you know, from a top-down perspective. You have to avoid enemies while getting to your locations in the time limit. You can shoot enemies, you can avoid enemies, and a lot of obstacles. You have to drive as fast as you can. I feel like it's very tedious and requires split-second reflexes, and you almost have to guess what's ahead of you. It's almost like you have to memorize the maps. Honestly, I find Spy Hunter very frustrating. I do know that there's fun to be had here, and I also acknowledge people like this kind of game, even though it's not for me. So I might give this a solid C tier. You know, give it a try and let me know what you think yourself. A Boy and His Blob. This was one game I used to always leave at the video store, but I finally tried it out and played it. A mixture of platforming and puzzle action, guys. You play a boy that has a blob, and you throw the blob jelly beans, and doing different abilities. It's supposed to help you traverse different platforming levels and stuff. Once you figure out how to play it, apparently the game's not that long. I didn't play it long enough because I got sick of it. I feel like some of the platforming, the puzzles, and the actions you take will kill you in a very cheap way. I don't like A Boy and His Blob. I know some of you guys do. I don't. I'm putting that in the D tier. I'm very sorry, everybody. Now we have Goonies 2, everybody. Goonies 2 is mainly remembered for its phenomenal music. It's a hybrid of action platforming and point-and-click adventuring. The goal of Goonies 2 is to rescue all the kids, I think, that have been kidnapped by the Fratellis. They've come back for revenge. I don't know why they didn't use that plot for a sequel. But good, yeah, you play Mikey. You have to save all the other kids. They're all locked up. You have to figure out and solve puzzles by finding hidden entrances and solving point and click challenges. And then you've got the basic platforming where you just go around, jumping around, finding where you need to go, killing enemies and stuff with a big yo-yo. And occasionally you'll even encounter one of the Fratellis and you have to knock them out too. That's pretty neat. I used to play this game solely to listen to the music. The music in this is like god tier. Like, it's some of the best music on NES. The Goonies theme is phenomenal. Konami already did amazing music. Probably the best music on the system. However, the game itself, I never could properly figure out. I'm probably going to give Goonies 2 a C tier, everybody. That's probably all it deserves, to be fair. Although, if you actually know how to play the game and beat the game, you might put it a grade higher to a B. That's perfectly fine. Let me know in the chat. Next, we got Battletoads and Double Dragon. Okay. Battletoads and Double Dragon. This also came out on the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. You can either play as the Double Dragon brothers or the Battletoads, and you go through these hybrid of levels, which is mainly beat-em-up levels, but occasionally you'll ride one of the speedsters and do some other styles of gameplay as well. I feel like the Nintendo version, albeit is a graphic downgrade, is the one way to play this game. I just feel like the game's a bit more responsive, tight, and a little bit less cheap. It's still a very challenging game, but I feel like at least you're not fighting against the gameplay on this version of the game. I would not recommend the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis versions of Double Dragon and Battletoads. However, on NES, that's probably going to get an A tier, to be honest. Oh, no, I'll give it an A tier. It is a very, very, very good game. You have to be a little bit of a masochist for this one, though. It's going to give you a right challenge, guys. Duck Hunt. Oh, bro. I can't remember what I gave this on my Black Box series. Either a B tier or an A tier. It's a fun shooter game, although limited. You know, it's a good time killer, but all there is to it is game A. Try and shoot one duck as it flies on the screen. Or game B, you'll have a choice of 2 ducks, which is more difficult. They'll progressively go faster with each level. And if you miss shooting ducks, that little bastard dog will laugh at you and think it's so freaking funny. And for that, I'm going to give it a point less. I would have given it an A tier, but I'm going to give this Zapper game a B tier. Screw you, you little dog. What's this one we got next? Oh, is that Ring King? I think that's Ring King. I've always found Ring King to be a really challenging boxing game, to be honest, guys. I personally could never figure it out. There was also a sequel, like World Champion Boxer, which I did eventually work it out, but You can do some training. Eventually, you develop your skills and, take on the different ranks of boxers and stuff. It's kind of like an isometric boxing game. Even using a cheat code with max stats, I can only beat a couple guys. I could just never figure out the gameplay, although everyone assures me this is a really good game. I guess I'll put it in a C tier just to be fair. But, I mean, I'm never going to play that ahead of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. We're going to put Ring King on C tier. Oh, thanks for your understanding, guys. I have to keep resizing this on the fly. The good news is we are almost done here. Next, we have Ice Climber. Ice Climber, I mean, it's a good platforming game. I reviewed this very recently. You basically play this little guy, and you have to hit upwards with this mallet and climb up the various ice levels. End of each level, when you hit the top, there's like a bonus stage. You have to avoid enemies. The platforming gets substantially harder with each level. It's a good black box game, guys. One of the NES originals. Definitely worth a play. I'm probably going to give this one a C tier. Give it a try. It's not exceptional, but it's a very good platforming game. Next, we got the original Dragon Warrior. So sorry, guys. I didn't really play Dragon Warrior, aka Dragon Quest, until the new ones. I'm fully aware that this is an all-time classic. I not acknowledge that this is probably an S or an A tier game. But I can't rate something that I've never tried properly at all, apart from more than 5 minutes anyway. So we're going to have to put that in the haven't played section. Demon Sword. I'm trying to remember Demon Sword now. Jeez, man, we're getting a lot in the haven't played section, huh? This is a little bit unfortunate towards the end, guys. Oh, here we go. Here's one. Journey to Silius. I heard a rumor that this was originally supposed to be a Terminator game, but Sunsoft didn't end up getting the license, so they kind of had to treat it as something else. There is actually a Terminator mod of this game. But then you play this little guy, and you have to traverse these alien-like levels with different weaponry. It's exceptionally hard, very brutally hard game, but a fun game and rewarding if you can get through a few levels. Bosses and stuff, which are also exceptionally hard. If you like run-and-gun shooters and action games, I think this is definitely worthy of a B tier. I would certainly recommend it to people. It's a great game. Sunsoft never really let people down with their titles. Next, we have Power Blade, one of the more underrated games on NES. I mean, obviously, you play this dude with a Power Blade, platforming, action. Never played this game a lot. One of my friends says is his favorite game. I can certainly see the appeal. I personally find this quite difficult. Also, at times, I found it difficult to know where to go. You kind of got these open-ended action levels where, you do, I think there's platforming, ladder climbing, things like that. It's been a long time, I have to admit. Correct me if I've made a mistake here, guys. But from what I remember of this game, I'm going to put it into solid B territory. I think it's certainly worthy of that. Now, at least now we have a game that I know very well. When I was a kid, Double Dragon 2: The Revenge on NES. Every kid on the block, or in the blocks following my block, seemed to have this game on NES. It was super common, and I loved how... Was it Acclaim? I loved it how Acclaim kind of did their own thing with the Double Dragon games on NES. It wasn't for everyone, but they kind of did their own thing on those consoles, and this is one of my favorite beat-em-ups, guys, Double Dragon 2. It's wonderful. You got the slums, and then you've got these like hidden bases and stuff. You have to defeat bosses that look like Danny Trejo and Arnold Schwarzenegger. There are some unnecessary platforming sections in this game that people absolutely hate, but I finally, over the years, figured them out. An epic final boss fight and theme tune. Got to figure out why Marion got murdered and the mystery behind her murder and stuff. It's basically called The Revenge for a reason. You're getting revenge for a death. Wonderful action beat-em-up game. That definitely goes into A tier. Can't put it into God tier because it's not perfect, but it's near perfect, and I certainly recommend Double Dragon 2: The Revenge as a must-play. We got Mega Man 5. We've spoken about Mega Man a few times now. Robot bosses, rock, paper, scissors system to use the weapons, Wily boss stages, hidden hideouts, all that kind of thing. I used to remember Mega Man 5 more fondly, but I played this again pretty recently, and it just drove me up I actually rage quitted. I just thought the game was really difficult, really cheap. There's other people that are better in Mega Man games than me. I didn't really get a whole lot out of this one, guys, honestly. So I'm actually going to put that into the C tier. Sorry, everybody. It's going into the C tier. I don't like Mega Man 5 all that much. Let's see what we got next. Load Runner. F. F. Why F? Any platforming game which doesn't have a jump button gets an instant F from me. You might think that's very unfair. Too freaking bad. What's the point of a platforming game with no freaking jump button? F. 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 Oh my gosh, I was a little bit too passionate about that one. Alright, let's see what we got. Mickey Mouse Capade. I think I vaguely remember this game. You've got some side-scrolling platforming levels, and then you've got these open-ended buildings that you have to climb up and find keys for and stuff and defeat enemies. It's been a long time since I played it, although I did get relatively far through it. It's certainly a competent Disney game, a nice use of the Mickey Mouse license, albeit not an exceptional game. I'll give it a solid mid-C, I think, for that one. What do we got now? We got Guardian Legend. Oh, okay. This is probably one of the more underrated games on the NES. It's a hybrid. Only played it a little bit, but there's like a mixture of like shooter and open world action sequences in this game. Very, I like how ambitious this game was, actually. I can't really talk too much about the plot because I don't know a whole lot about this game. But just judging by the basic mechanics, I really enjoyed it. And I know a lot of other people really enjoyed this one too. Oh, should I give it an A or a B? From what, just, I'm going between A and B, but just going by the voices in my ear, I think I actually have to put Guardian Legend in A tier. It truly is a very interesting game, guys. If you know, and I love games that, especially games that old, that try to do something new and ambitious, and it's definitely a trendsetter, trailblazer. Zombie Nation, I think that's the game where you play the little zombie head, and you have to, what do you have to do in that? You have to shoot other enemies and stuff. I didn't play that game, unfortunately, so no, we're not going to, there we go. As I said, this is the IGN's top 100 NES games of all time, and you'll have to see what they rated them. I'll see if I can find the list for you guys, and I'm also comparing my thoughts. What's this one? Bionic Commando. F. I told you guys, any platforming game that has no jump button, F. But you basically play this commando, do all these platforming levels via a grappling hook. I don't know, I just can't stand it. I feel so limited. There's people that think Bionic Commando is an all-time classic and should be A tier. I don't care. I do not like the game. Platforming games should have a jump button. Not even going to talk about it any more than that. Now we got Willow. This was like Capcom's, I guess, answer to The Legend of Zelda. And top-down kind of adventure game. Same kind of experience you expect from Zelda. Open world, going into different hovels and stuff. Attacking enemies on the open world map and stuff. I haven't played this for a long period of time, but for the amount of time I did play it, I enjoyed it. And I guess it's a nice use of the Willow license as well. I haven't seen the movie for a number of years, but I do remember seeing it in the drive-in cinema. Yeah, I mean, it's a competent open world adventure game. Let's give that a B tier, guys. Now we got Section Z. This is a game that I know very, very well. I always really enjoyed this, guys. You play this like futuristic cyborg guy, kind of has a rocket pack. You go into this big space base, and I think there's multiple space bases that you need to go through, and they're kind of all very maze-like. At the end of each, you have to basically take a pathway which will lead you in one direction or another, and if you're not careful, it can actually take you all the way back to the beginning. So you have to take the right path, and there's a few puzzles to solve along the way, but overall, this is more of an action game than anything. An action side-scrolling shooter, actually. So what you have to do is shoot all these enemies, collect health, power-ups, and then go on to the next part of the base. Eventually, you'll encounter bosses and mini-bosses. It's pretty neat. There's secrets to be found. I always enjoyed this. This got me through a lot of my childhood around the age of 9 years old. I'd play this a lot while my mum was at work. Would I give it a B tier? Yeah, you know what? I'm probably going to rate it a lot higher than other people. I really enjoyed Section Z. It's not perfect, but I thought it was an interesting take on a horizontal shooter. I felt like you had a lot of freedom in the game, and it was very interesting to play. Next, we got Mario Brothers, guys. The Mario Brothers arcade game. I can't remember if in my black box video I gave this a B rating or an A rating. It's an arcade port. It's Mario's original adventure, the single screen platforming game where you had to hit underneath turtles and crabs and things like that, knock them off their perches and etc, etc. It's good. It's fine. I enjoyed it. Really fun. Certainly the best home port. I may have given it an A last time, but I'm kind of feeling B today, so we'll give it a B tier rating, guys. It's good. One of the better black box games. Skate or Die. I think Skate or Die. I don't know if that's Skate or Die 1 or 2. I'm just going to pretend this is number 1, guys, because I never really played the second one. A flawed but fun skateboarding game where you can do mini games like half pipe. You can basically do street skating where you like it's kind of like a loitering type of mini game where you can like jump on a cop car and stuff. A downhill course. There's a few other things, like there's a high jumping course, and then there's like a big swimming pool joust. It's pretty cool, man. Like, you feel like a skateboarding punk when you're playing this game. Unfortunately, sometimes you're fighting against the controls. But once you get used to them, it's a fun game to be had. I'm actually going to give Skate or Die a high C. A very high C. Could have almost gotten a B rating, but it is a little bit limited to what's on offer in the game. Little Samson, guys, this is one of the most underrated games on the Nintendo Entertainment System. You play a guy called Samson, and you collect all these creatures that have different abilities. You have like this rock golem who's immune to spikes and is really slow but can hit hard. And then you got this dragon that's weak but can fly and is more versatile to attack enemies. You got this mouse, which is fragile, but goes in the hard-to-reach places. And then you got Samson, which is kind of like a jack-of-all-trades, master of nothing. It's a mixture of flying and shooting and action platforming, grabbing onto ledges, going through typical platforming levels. Very creative bosses. Kind of has a bit of a mythology flavor to it. Wonderful game. A lot of people missed it. I think it was by Taito. One of the better Taito games, actually. And yeah, a lot of people were already onto the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis when it came out. And this is one of the rarest games on the Nintendo. Very expensive. Little Samson's an easy A-tier game. It's certainly very close to being a must-play game, and it's just a shame that it doesn't have that mainstream appeal. Next we have... I don't even know what that game is. Maybe you guys can tell me what this game is. I can't even see what this game is. Forgive me. Is it Klondike or something? Anyway, I haven't played it. We're going to put that one down there. Mega Man 4. Alright, you know what? I used to hate Mega Man 4. Now I really enjoy Mega Man 4, although it's still very difficult. Really good creative robot bosses. I think there's a ring ability in Mega Man 4, if I'm not mistaken. That was pretty handy. There's these evil Doctor levels before the evil Wily levels. There's a bit of a plot twist in the game as well. It's a solid Mega Man experience. Not the perfect one that number 2 and 3 is, but it's certainly, I guess you could say, best of the rest. I'm going to give Mega Man 4 a B tier. Never thought I'd say that. Sorry, guys. Never had experience with Dragon Warrior. I know a lot of nerds today are going to kill me. Forgive me, guys. I love ya. We're going to have to put that in the haven't played section. Dragon Warrior 3. Okay, we got Astyanax, or Astyanax, however you say it. Decent game, man. I used to rent this a lot. Got very close to the end. I don't know if it's based on Greek mythology or something else, but you play this warrior. Kind of looks like, I guess you could say, a legionary sort of warrior. And you got like this sword. You can cast magic as well. Do some basic side-scrolling platforming. Very challenging with the flying enemies and everything else. But you go around with your sword killing things, casting magic. Eventually, at the end of the levels, you'll defeat a boss. I think there's also a couple horizontally scrolling levels as well. Really fun, action-packed adventure romp by Jellico, who were a bit hit and miss with their games, but I think this is one of the better ones. Difficult, flawed, but fondly for me remembered. I'm going to give this a low B tier rating. Astyanax, I think. Astyanax. Tell me how you actually say the game. There's an arcade one too, but I prefer the NES port. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, everyone. The game everyone was disappointed to receive because it wasn't the arcade game, but now I have a fond appreciation from this. If you asked me what I rated this about 2 years ago, I would have given it a D or an F. But now that I've learned the patterns and the secrets of all the enemies, I find this game really fun. You can pick any of the 4 turtles, and you do different levels. Some are action levels. You've got an underwater level where you have to defuse bombs. Frustrates everyone, but once you figure it out, it's honestly not that bad. Different bosses in this. Bebop, Rocksteady. I mean, their patterns are pretty basic. It is an 8-bit game, obviously. You know, Giant Mouse, a Technodrome. Eventually, you'll take on Shred Nuts, beat the game. Very difficult, flawed, but fun. I'm going to give it a low B tier rating. And last but not least, we have Russian Attack, guys, also known as Green Beret. Konami game, great music. I've never beaten the game. Well, not on NES. I've beaten it on Commodore 64 with a cheat code, so I have seen the end. It's fantastic, guys. A little bit cheap, a little bit hard. But one of those games that has you coming back for one more game. You play this commando with a knife, and you're running through enemy territory, basically just trying to stab everyone. Occasionally, you'll collect a rocket or a gun. They're these really annoying jumpy enemies that are hard to avoid, especially when other soldiers are shooting at you through turrets. There's a boss sequence at the end of every level. I mean, this game is just nuts. It's a solid B tier as well. And that, my friends, was the IGN 100's top 100 NES games. And I only didn't know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games. So I managed to rate 86 games for you today, guys, which is pretty unreal. I just want to remind you of the S tier up here with Super Mario 3, Zelda, Super Mario Brothers, Mega Man 2, Kung Fu, and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Agree with me. Let me know if you agree with me on my S tier, and if you would add anything else to the S tier, by all means, let me know in the comments. So we got the A tier, which is the best of the rest. These are all still very must play games, and we're very close to being godly. B is very, very solid. Should have the B games in your collection as well. C is kind of like a maybe section. So, as I said, with the C tier, if they're in the bargain bins for cheap, the C tier games are ones I would consider giving a shot if you're not spending or breaking the bank, if that makes sense. And like D, thankfully, you know what? We didn't have a lot of D or F tier games. So I think for the most part, IGN got their top 100 right. I think bias came from nostalgia a little bit with things like Ikari Warriors and Battletoads. But for the most part, I think they got it right. So that's it today, guys. Thank you for watching my IGN Top 100 NES games. I ranked them from best to worst. I hope you enjoyed this tier today. You legends, I'll see you on the next video. Take care.